How's it going, everybody? You are listening to Trail Tales, episode number 85. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a huge hiking nerd, and every single week on this podcast, I chat with other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail. Taylor, the Nahamsha hiker, is this week's guest. You might know her from her YouTube channel. She started a AT 2020 vlog this year, and she had to get off the trail due to the obvious reason, the coronavirus thing, but she still did a good little chunk down south there, and she's a super strong hiker. She's also been a big supporter of Trail Tales and my YouTube channel as well, and through that we kind of connected and were able to go on a hike together. We thru-hiked the Monadnock to Sunapee Greenway trail at the end of last month, and this episode is all about our hike. It took us about 4 days I guess technically, and we basically just walk through each day on the trip, and at the end of the episode, Taylor tells a story that should be a good reminder to everybody to stay hydrated while they're hiking. It was a story that didn't happen on our hike, but it was still scary nonetheless. But other than the end where that's kind of not great, it was a really fun episode. It was an amazing hike that we did. The Monadnock to Sunapee Greenway Trail is amazing, and I can't wait for you guys to hear all about it. Before we get into it, instead of my usual plugs, I'm going to say a couple things that are new. First of all, I need a new editor soon. Patrick, who's been editing these past few episodes, has done an amazing job, but he has to go back to school soon and focus on more important things. So if you have any technical abilities at all, like you don't even have to be that advanced, it doesn't even have to be audio. If you've ever used like any sort of editing software before and you want some beer money, some extra cash for only a couple hours a week, let me know. You know where to find me. Instagram at Kyle Hates Hiking, or send me an email, trailtalespod@gmail.com. The next thing I have to say is about 46 Climbs. Some of you longtime listeners might remember this from last year, but I'm fundraising again this year for the charity 46 Climbs. It was started by a good friend of mine and a semi-frequent guest on the show. He hasn't been on for a while, but Colby Ziemendorf. Him and his now wife, Catherine, founded 46 Climbs, and it's basically a fundraiser for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, but it puts like a hiker spin on it. So you basically, when you sign up, you choose a mountain anywhere in the world, and during the time period between September 4th and September 13th, 2020, you go out and you hike that mountain wearing the t-shirt and the bandana and all the other swag that they send you when you sign up. I have a team, so we can all pool our money together. I decided to put it under Kyle Hates Hiking, my YouTube channel this year, because more people saw it through that than they will through the podcast, but don't worry, it's still the Trail Tales team. It just says Kyle Hates Hiking, so please go check that out. I will have a link to the team's page in the show notes. Like, seriously, I've already raised over $2,000 in less than a week, which is so amazing. Like, people are really coming through here, so please go check that out. I would really, really appreciate it. I also have a YouTube video a very brief YouTube video that explains just a little bit more in detail, like what it's all about, so I'll throw a link to that in the show notes as well. Please go check out 46climbs.com and sign up for the Kyle Hates Hiking team. That would be awesome. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, this week's sponsor, you know them, you love them, Sawyer Products. Let me tell you a little bit about their amazing water filters. So not only are their filters extremely easy to use, but they're also held to a higher standard than all their competitors. For instance, Sawyer's filters use something called hollow fiber membrane technology. That's a very big term for someone with a small brain like me, but there was an independent study conducted that proved Sawyer's filters to be 75% stronger than other hollow fiber membrane filters on the market. Their filters remove 99.9999 bunch of nines of all bacteria and 100% of microplastics. Another thing that's really cool and really just shows how dedicated Sawyer is to maintaining a high standard of quality is that each Sawyer filter is tested 3 times during the manufacturing process. And I think that's so amazing. I feel like most other filter companies are not doing that. I don't know that for a fact, but I have my doubts, I'll say that. Sawyer is so dedicated to maintaining a high standard of quality, and not only are their filters really effective, but one other thing I really like about them is that they're so easy to backwash. They're so easy to clean. And in fact, you can actually restore the flow rate almost to 100%, just below 100%, every single time that you backwash it. You guys have heard me say this before, but I've been using Sawyer's filters for years, long before this podcast, long before I ever worked with them on anything, and I'm honestly going to keep using their filters long after they decide that they've had enough of dealing with my BS. So thank you so much to Sawyer for sponsoring this episode. Thank you so much to Sawyer for keeping this stuff going. I really, really appreciate it. Go check them out, Sawyer.com. With that said, let's do it. Episode number 85 of Trail Tales. My conversation with Taylor, this always sounds so stupid when I say it, but Taylor, the Nahamsha hiker. All right, here we go. Take two. I fucked up the first time. Taylor, the Nahamsha hiker. What's going on?
What's going on?
Did you have to think about that for a second?
I don't know the right answer to what's going on.
What's going on? I don't know. Not much. Yeah, I don't know. How are you? Is that a better opening?
That's great. I'm great, Kyle. How are you?
I am great, except for the guys that are literally tearing out my neighbor's driveway right outside my window right now, which apparently you said you couldn't hear it on the microphone. I hope not. But yeah, I live like right next to somebody's driveway, and anyways, it's probably gonna distract me, but
as long as you can't hear my neighbor's dog, because no one likes my neighbor's dog.
But you're the guest, like you're supposed to, like you get a little bit of leeway, you know, like, you're taking the time to like come on my show. I feel like I gotta, at least my audio has to be good, and I can't be a complete shit show and distracted, but it'll be okay. Yeah. My neighbors need a new driveway and they're gonna get it. So this episode is gonna be cool. It's gonna be a little bit different than a normal episode, even though I feel like I say that for almost every episode at this point, because Taylor and I just recently, what was it, like 3 weeks ago now, we did the hike?
I feel like it was last weekend.
It feels like it was last weekend. It definitely
was like a week and a half ago.
I think it was like 2 weekends ago, something like that. And anyways,
recently.
Yeah, very recently, Taylor and I went on the Monadnock to Sunapee Greenway Trail in New Hampshire, which, if you listen to a lot of these episodes, you might have heard people reference it a few times. I haven't really talked about it too much, but it's been mentioned. I've asked a couple questions about it in previous episodes, and it's been on my list for a long time, and I finally got around to doing it with Taylor. And it was really cool. So that's what this episode is going to be about. We're going to go through each day and just see, you know, I'm sure we'll go off on some tangents or whatever. And I'm definitely going to hype this trail up. So I got to give this disclaimer. I did the same thing when I talked about my hike of the Foothills Trail, like God knows how long ago now, over a year ago now. But I got to like give a disclaimer. I'm going to hype the shit out of this trail. And
well, it deserves the hype.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it'd be so easy. And I feel like people do this sometimes. Like, they'll come on and like they'll go on a hike, and maybe it was fun, but there were shitty parts with it, and they just hype it up anyway. Like, they just make it sound like an amazing hike. And I just gotta say, like, this hike was actually like amazing. Like, I feel like very few things went wrong, and this trail, like, genuinely, I think is so underrated and a hidden gem. And so I'm definitely gonna hype the shit out of it. But I like thought it was amazing, so that's why.
I'll back it all up.
Yes, please do. But before I start going off about how amazing this trail is, for those that aren't familiar with you and your content and all that stuff, Taylor, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Taylor. I live in Nahamsha. So that's kind of like what all my social media is, Nahamsha. I've lived here for maybe like 5 years. I'm originally from Massachusetts, but I moved up here and didn't know anyone. So I'm like, well, what's something I can do by myself? So that's kind of how I got into hiking. And I've done the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footers.
The Nahamsha 48 4,000 footers?
Yeah.
I can't even say it. It sounds so dumb when I say it.
Yeah, so I did all the 4,000 footers in about like 3 years. And then I've done a lot of like smaller lists, but I love all the lists. Like, I'll find a random list on the internet of hikes to do, and I'll just put it in a binder and just check them off.
You actually like print them out and like keep them in a binder.
Yeah, I have a hiking binder. So every time I get back from a hike, I open up my binder and I have something to check off.
That's pretty old school. I like it though. I like it. Yeah. I guess I do have some like papers to keep track of like my Northeast 115, which I've been procrastinating finishing for God knows how long now. But a whole binder, I don't know about that.
But I guess most people know me from when I attempted the AT this year.
Yeah, why don't you talk about what happened there? I guess there's not like that much to say, but just tell that story real quick.
Well, I was attempting a no-bow through hike. I went up Springer Mountain on the leap day, so February 29th, and I got 3 weeks in until they asked us to get off the trail. And I'm not one to go against the rules, so I got off at mile 274.
Hot Springs.
So, Hot Springs, yep.
Hot Springs, North Carolina, yeah, so...
It was a short hike, but...
And was that, like, most of your backpacking experience before this hike that we did?
Yeah, before I set foot on the AT, I only had one night of backpacking experience.
Oh, nice. But you crushed it pretty good. Yeah. You said, like, what, was it 3 weeks? So, I don't know, around 20 days-ish?
Yeah, I think I got off on March 21st.
Okay.
So I did the 274 miles in 3 weeks.
So that
sounds right.
Yeah, you were doing pretty well. And obviously, like, you were still an experienced hiker before that. You just hadn't done that much overnight hiking. But now you have another through hike to add to your resume. Or a through hike to add to your resume.
Through hike. Yeah, if 50 miles counts as a through hike.
Which is a very highly debated topic, as I learned when I posted my Foothills Trail video, like back before, like this is literally like the first video pretty much I ever posted on my channel. And like over time, I've gotten a few people commenting because the Foothills Trail is about 80, just under 80 miles. And I've had people comment like, oh, like that's not a through hike. Like that's disrespectful to like the AT through hikers. And I was like, well, I also hiked the AT too. And I'm saying it's a through hike. Yeah. So I don't know I don't know. It was weird. So if you're listening to this and you have a strong opinion on what constitutes, is that a word? What makes a through hike? Let me know. Is 50 miles a through hike? If it's a designated trail and you hike it end to end, is 70? Like, what's the arbitrary cutoff? I
say whatever you want.
Yeah, well, exactly. It
it's
doesn't
a through hike to me.
Exactly. It doesn't actually matter, but if we're going to have like some sort of, I'm just curious to see what people think. And I think it's a through hike. If it's like a designated trail, I think but then again, if it's like a 5 mile designated trail, like that wouldn't, so I don't know. There's got to be a line somewhere.
I never knew the term end to end until I started reading the logbooks on that trail.
Oh, really?
So now maybe I'm an end to ender. I don't know.
Yeah, they use that term a lot with the long trail as well. Yeah. Like they call in like the official, the Green Mountain Club. I don't know if it's official, but often I hear them refer to people that have hiked the whole trail not as through hikers but as end to enders. So maybe that's how you skirt around that. But with the AT, I always hear through hikers. I very rarely hear someone, oh yeah, I'm an AT end to ender. You know, that just sounds weird.
That sounds ridiculous.
It just sounds stupid. So I don't know. Anyways, why don't you go ahead, Taylor, because I've been blabbing already and I have a feeling I'm going to do a lot of that in this episode. Why don't you just explain to people what the Monadnock to Sunapee Greenway Trail is?
Yeah, so that is a 50-mile trail. It's in like southwestern New Hampshire that starts on Mount, I always butcher this word, Monadnock.
Monadnock, not
yes.
Monadnock.
Monadnock, which I said in my video and people called me out. Monadnock, and then it goes 50 miles north to Mount Sunapee. So it's like a summit to summit hike.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what it was until you mentioned it.
Yeah, I
mean, a month ago.
Like I said a few minutes ago, it's not a popular trail. I mean, as we found out too, because we saw like maybe 3 people that were hiking it the whole time we were out there.
Only 3 others.
And like 2 of them were hiking together too as a group. So it's like it's not a popular trail at all, and it's a hidden gem. Like I'm telling you, I already said that. I said it in like my videos and stuff, but this trail is amazing. Like it's so good. It's maintained by the Monadnock to Sunapee Greenway Trail club, so it has its own volunteer organization.
We need to shout them out for how well they maintain that.
It's so good. Like it's so good. Like not just the trail itself. Like I didn't see a blow down the entire trail. Like they're on top of that, but also just the shelters too. Like there's shelters on this trail, which is really cool, I think, because you don't see that many like seldom hiked trails like this that have like fully formed campsites and like lean-tos and stuff. So
yeah, I always thought all the New Hampshire ones were just on the AT. So that surprised me.
Yeah, me too. And like they're very well maintained. Like it's just like they do such a good job. They're very old school, I will say, because I tried to make a donation online and they were like, we don't have like an online donation. They were like, send me a check, and I was like, well, I don't have a checkbook, but I'm still gonna figure that out because I want to like help them out a little bit because like it was such an amazing experience. But anyways, let's talk about day one, and let's start with the logistics. Had you ever done like a car swap before, Taylor? I
don't think I have. Like I don't really have many hiking friends that live near me. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of my friends are just like anti-hikers, so I've never been able to.
They're not just not hikers, but they're anti-hikers. They're like, well, we fucking hate hiking.
all my friends are skiers, so they're like, if there's no chairlift, why am I gonna go up there?
That is, I feel like this. I know a lot of skiers over here in Vermont too, obviously, and I feel like that is kind of. I don't know. There's some people that are into both, but my roommates both are very big into skiing, both very good skiers, and it's pretty hard to get them to come out on a hike, but so I guess I understand that. But the car swap.
So I've never done a car spot.
Yeah, car swap. People call it whatever. But I thought it went pretty well. It is kind of a pain. I guess I'll explain too, just briefly for those that don't know. It's basically where if you have a point-to-point trail, so you're starting and finishing in two different spots. Obviously, you gotta have some sort of transportation. Like you can't just drive to the start, hike to the finish, and then be like, oh shit, like what do I do now? So, you could do a shuttle, or what we did is we met at the end of the trail, which was at Mount Sunapee. We left my car there, took Taylor's car to the beginning of the trail, and then hiked from the beginning back to my car. And then when we got to my car, obviously we drove down back to the beginning and dropped Taylor off at her car. So it is kind of a pain in the ass, unfortunately. But
and it's like an hour drive between the two cars.
Yeah, which it felt a little bit redundant for me at the end because I was like, shit, like I'm adding an hour to my trip. But then I ended up getting Five Guys burgers and fries on the way back in Keene, so it was 100% worth it because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do that. But yeah, it's like it's not ideal, but I mean the only other option we had was to pay a taxi company, and I'm not even sure if we could have gotten them to do it. I'd called them last year when I was planning this hike, and they quoted me at like $130, I think, and I was like, I just can't justify doing that when I could go do a loop hike somewhere else. So like there's really not that many options on this trail, unfortunately. There's not even any that I'm aware of, at least, actual like shuttle services for the trail. It's just that one taxi company, I guess. So we had to do that, but it was fine. We jammed out a little bit, got some dunks on the way back. That was good. And then we started the hike. Do you want to just talk a little bit about, this might be dated by the time people hear this if it's like in the future at some point, but just like the process of like the parking at Monadnock, because that's a little bit of not that much of a pain, but you just have to plan a little bit for that,
Yeah. So what, we made like a reservation to park our car there.
Yep.
And it was like $16, and we were able to leave the car there the whole time. And they gave us like a little tag to put on the windshields, and basically just said hiking the Monadnock Sunapee Greenway, be back in 4 days.
They were very laid back about it, which was good.
Yeah, and the parking lot was giant. Like we saw a little tiny part of it, but I think it went back in the woods like forever.
Yeah, it definitely did.
So.
And I'm not sure how much. So yeah, the reservation thing you mentioned, I'm not sure if that's normal or if that's COVID, because
could be.
But even without COVID, as we're probably going to talk about in a minute, Mount Monadnock is extremely popular, like freaking the most or second most popular mountain.
Most hiked mountain in North America.
Something ridiculous like that. Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful, but I really don't get why everyone flocks to one spot.
I mean, I get it's like close to Boston and stuff, but it's like I don't really understand that either, to be honest. But I'm not sure if the reservation was COVID related or if it was normal because there's just so many people trying to hike it and they fill up or something. But as of friggin' summer 2020, you have to make a reservation to park at the Monadnock State Park headquarters. Now, there are lots of other trails. Some of them, most of them, I think, are still controlled by the state, New Hampshire. I'm not sure what it's like leaving a car for a couple days at those other trailheads. I'm not sure how that works. I just know that for the headquarters, the state park headquarters, you just go online, get the reservation. I did it like the day before we parked, and it was a Friday, so they were very chill about it, and it was no big deal. So we did that, and then the hike up Mount Monadnock.
Oh,
I'm curious. God. Yeah, like I'm glad you said that, because I was expecting, like, I was like, oh, Mount Monadnock, like most popular mountain or whatever, like a bunch of random people do it, like it'll probably be super easy, like we're just gonna crush it. And it wasn't like the most difficult thing I've ever done, but it was way fucking harder than I actually thought it was, to be honest. And it sounds like you kind of agree with that, yeah?
And we just need to say that we hiked like Friday to Monday, and all 4 of those days were sunny and like 90 degrees.
Yeah, it was really hot out.
So, yeah, the heat played a big factor into the difficulty of that.
And also, I think just the fact that we were starting out and we had like full food and full water, and we'd just been in the car for a couple hours, and all those, and just people, there's so many people going up. I could not believe that, honestly.
Yeah, and I have a big fear of dehydration, so I chugged about a liter of Gatorade in the parking lot. And the entire hike up, I thought it was going to come back up. Like, I was bent over in pain for most of the hike up.
To be fair, pretty much every single person we saw on the way up was also bent over in pain, myself included. Maybe not that kind of pain, but just...
in their little tiny day packs.
Yeah, and we had our huge backpacks, and it was just crazy for me because, like, I've been on crowded trails before, I've been on like popular hikes before, but I've never been on a hike where the entire time was around other people. Like, like that actually, like, and again, like I can't say I was like shocked about it because like we knew it was really popular and stuff, but like, holy shit, there's a lot of people. Like, you were constantly around people, like both directions, like passing people, getting passed by people, like people on the way down, like just the whole time. And of course, we were the only ones that had like heavy backpacks too. Like everybody else was just day hiking, so that was kind of frustrating.
And you couldn't, like, as soon as you stopped hiking for a second, there's like 5 people behind you that want to pass you.
Yeah.
And then they pass you, and then you start hiking again, and then you have to pass them.
Yeah.
There's this big giant mountain game of leapfrog.
Literally, it was unbelievable. So honestly, I would suggest if you're gonna hike Mount Monadnock, don't go up the White Dot Trail. That's what we did, which is like it's got to be like the most popular trail. Like there was, because on the way down, obviously we were on another trail, the Dublin Trail, I think it's called, something like that. And that's where the Greenway actually starts. But it was like there was hardly, I think we passed like 2 or 3 people on that trail. So. Yeah, go on a different trail if you're going to hike Mount Monadnock. But, like, the summit, oh, my God. Like, it's a super, like, open, very big summit. Like, there's a lot of space up there for people. And it was just, and this was a Friday, too. Like, not even a Saturday or a Sunday. Oh, my God. I can't even imagine. Like, there were so many people up there. It was unreal. And this trail...
try not to hike that on a Saturday. Yeah. Anyone listening, don't do it.
Definitely don't do it on a Saturday if you can help it. And this trail, the Monadnock to Sunapee Greenway Trail, let's just call it the Greenway, or that's actually, we were talking about that. What is the, like, the short-term name for this trail? Because, like, the AT, or the Appalachian Trail is like the AT, but this trail, it's like, we were trying to decide what the short, I don't even know.
The MSG.
T?
MSGT.
The MSGT.
I don't know. I like saying the Greenway. We can do that.
I think the Greenway is the best way to just, I don't know, in my opinion, the best way. Just call it the Greenway. But the Greenway, it starts on the summit of Mount Monadnock. So you can climb the mountain any way you want as long as you get to the top. And that's where, like, the trail starts, technically. So those first, 2.5, it wasn't even that long to climb up Monadnock. It felt way longer.
We were up there in, like, an hour and a half, I think.
Yeah, but it was just it was a tough climb. So it's like, that's where the trail actually starts, is on the summit. And then from the top of Monadnock on, the rest was, like, sick. But the first couple miles up that was not a huge fan, you know?
Yeah, no. I mean, I was going to do Monadnock anyways because it's part of a New Hampshire list. It's part of 52 with the View. So I'm glad I got that.
Oh, did you pull out the binder when you got back and check that off?
Oh, well, yeah, I did it like 10 minutes ago because I forgot.
So once we go up to the top of Monadnock, that's where the actual trail started. And the rest of the day after that was pretty chill, I would say. I don't know. It was
a short day. I think we only hiked 8 miles that day.
Yeah, and that includes the 2 miles that weren't technically part of the Greenway. So really only like 6 miles of the actual trail that first day. But, we had to drive, or at least we both had to drive down and then do the car spots. So we kind of planned it. We're like, okay, we'll do a half day of hiking so we have time and we don't have to rush or get up like stupid early in the morning to make all that happen. So I don't know. I thought that was a pretty good plan. What would you say?
Yeah, that worked out really well because then the 2 middle days were really big days.
Yeah. So if you think about it, it's like technically we did it in 4 days because it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday we finished. But on Friday and Monday, we only did half days. So it was really like a 3-day ordeal.
Yeah. 2 full days, 2 half days. I thought it was perfect.
I did too. Because honestly, this trail's not that difficult.
No.
Like it's like you're doing a little bit of, it's pretty rare that it's like completely flat, but you're not really doing, honestly, Monadnock, in my opinion, was by far the hardest climb of the whole trail.
Definitely. And it was perfect to hike it in the summer because I did not want to do like a 50-mile trail in the Whites on a weekend in July. Like that's way too much elevation. So this was a good break.
Yeah, exactly. Because it just wasn't that difficult. And another thing about this trail is I would say roughly, okay, I'm going to break it down, Taylor. Ready? I think a third of this trail is actual like hiking trail like everybody's probably used to. The second third is like kind of ATV style trail. So like you're still in the backcountry. There's no houses and anything around you. It's just a wider, easy trail, Yeah. And then the last third is just straight up like dirt roads, still not, you're not really ever in like super dense civilization, but you're on like these back dirt roads. Maybe there's some summer, people's houses, like seasonal places, or even sometimes they're full-time residences, like hunting camps, things like that. You're on like not traditional hiking trail for the majority of this trail, which I actually thought was really cool. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. I really enjoyed the dirt roads because I don't know, I just like when the miles go by really fast.
Yep.
So I would look at the map and look for a dirt road and get super excited about it. But yeah, the actual trail, like the 1/3 of hiking trails, were pretty cool because they were up and over like rolling hills.
Yeah.
And it was full-blown blueberry season.
Yes.
Which was amazing.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's my fault. Like I'm getting ahead of
We're jumping into day 2.
Yeah, we're jumping into day 2. But I mean, I guess we pretty much covered day 1. Like there wasn't that much to say after Monadnock. We stayed at the Spiltor. It's like, I don't even remember how to spell it, but the very first shelter on the trail if you're going northbound. And it was just a nice little spot, I think it was like a mile from the road. It wasn't too far in there, but it's private property, but it's super well maintained. There's a couple spots for tents out back. There's a privy with no cover, which is a little bit weird, but you see that sometimes like on the AT too, I guess. And so I don't know, it was a cool little spot. And then
the shelters on this trail were amazing, but the privies were very minimal.
Yeah, it was kind of hit or miss with the privies. But it is what it is. It's still better than nothing.
Oh, and then the highlight of day 1, very sarcastically, was
frog.
Realizing that my Sawyer O-ring wasn't there.
Oh yeah, awkward. This episode's sponsored by Sawyer, but
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I found it because you're not the only person who's had that problem. I kind of want to talk to them about it and see what they have to say. But I found if anybody's ever had their Sawyer O-ring fall out, it's probably due to the fact that you screwed it on too tight. because I had that happen to me like years ago, like before the AT, before podcast, YouTube, all that stuff. And I discovered that if I just didn't like screw the bottle on super tight, if you literally just turn it until it's like, good, then it's good, and it doesn't. I've never had it fall out since then, but
I know that now. And I use the Sawyer on my 21 days of the AT, and I don't think I'd use anything else. But yeah, it's a pretty easy thing to check before you hike.
Yes,
and it's a big problem that could be easily avoided.
You should definitely check it. Definitely check your O-rings, folks. I thought you were gonna say the highlight was the frog.
Yes, I'm very jumpy. Anything scares me. So yeah, I stepped on a frog and screamed at the top of my lungs.
Did you actually step on it, or did you just step like close to it?
I was mid-step, like my foot was coming down right over the frog, and then it jumped away. So the frog is alive and well.
I thought you were like falling into the water or something. I was like looking away, like filling up my bottle or whatever, and I was like, hear a scream, like shit. And then it was just a frog. Go watch the video, everybody. It's in the video.
I scream when I see those little salamanders too. Like they're only 2 inches long.
Yeah, there was a lot of those. Yeah,
I like those guys. But yeah, I'm incredibly jumpy for being really into backpacking and hiking.
It happens. It happens. So I guess that was day one pretty much. It's just a pretty good day all around, except for the heat, but that's okay. Day two.
So I didn't see you for a lot of it.
Yeah, we hiked like separate for like definitely at least half the day.
Yeah.
And the morning was a lot of roads, like mostly dirt roads, I would say, which again, I liked. Like people complain about road walking, and it sucks when it's like a paved road and there's cars whizzing by you, but when they're like back roads and there's still like a bunch of really pretty like views and stuff, like I don't mind that at all. So I really enjoyed that first part of the day.
There wasn't like there weren't cars or people or houses. Like we passed a couple farms with like ponies, or actual ponies, horses, and cows and stuff. But yeah, there were some cool things to look at.
I was staring down some cows at one point. I was like literally just editing that part of my video right before we started this, so that's fresh on my mind.
Yeah, they were all staring at me. And then we walked through one town, I think Nelson.
Yeah, and town is a very generous word for Nelson Center, I think it's called, or something.
Yeah, I couldn't even find a bench or anything.
There's pretty much, it was like a couple houses, a church, and a library, and that was pretty much it.
There
like,
was
there's no amenities
very
or anything.
Nice social distance mass going on at the church, which
yes,
is really cute.
In the front of the church, all these like these old folks were just sitting there, with their lawn chairs. Like I think they were just shooting the shit, honestly. Like I'm sure they were doing something there in front of the church, but
I think they started yelling because I wanted to walk around the town and take some videos and do stuff and see, and then I walked past where the Greenway was supposed to go, and they all stared yelling at me like, you went too far. I'm like, jeez. And then I got awkward and just left, so I didn't see much of Nelson.
And to be fair, there really wasn't much to see, but I did the same thing kind of. I was just like, I got my camera out, I was filming. There's like a Civil War monument there or something. Yeah, and then they started talking to me, and one guy in particular, there's probably like 6 or 7 of them in the circle maybe. Like one guy in particular was like kind of chirping me. It was kind of funny. Like he was like, I forget what he said. He said when I told him I was from Vermont, he was, because for those that don't know, the Connecticut River separates Vermont and New Hampshire. That's the border. And what did he say? He was like, I guess New Hampshire, like the border is at the Vermont side of the river, so the river's like in New Hampshire or something. That's what he said anyway. So he's like, oh, like we own the river, like you guys don't. And I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like I live on the other side of the state. Like I live on the Lake Champlain side. Like I don't fucking care. But it was funny. And then they all started chirping him, and they were like, oh yeah, this is an intervention for him. Like don't mind him or whatever, which I thought was pretty funny. What are they doing? Can you hear that? Jesus Christ.
I hear nothing.
Okay, good. They're going ape shit out there with the fucking machines. But anyways, that was kind of funny. And then we kind of caught up to each other. It was like halfway through or something like that, right?
Yeah, I was so excited. I got to a parking lot. I threw my backpack on the floor. I'm like, I'm going to take a nap until Kyle comes. And then like it was 3 minutes later, and yeah.
Those people said I was only 10 minutes behind you, so
Yeah.
I wasn't like killing myself because it was just so hot, and I was like filming a lot, and I don't know, I was like, shit, I'm on vacation. I took work off to do this, so I'm gonna enjoy it.
I know. I expected to see you within like half an hour.
I mean, we hiked at the same pace for pretty much, because even when we were like hiking together, we were pretty much like, I was maybe like 30, 40 yards in front of you for most of it, but like you're still hiking at the same pace. So, it makes sense, I guess. Let's see. So what was after that? After that, we got to that shelter, the Critter shelter.
What was that? Oh, for like a lunch break?
Critter shelter, something. It was CRID.
Yeah, Critter.
So yeah, Critter.
Because there was a sign on the privy that said Critter Crapper.
Yes, I remember that. And that was a really cool shelter because it was in like an area that had been logged recently. So like you were still kind of in the woods, but it was like a little bit more open woods than usual for like the Northeast. And so I remember that personally because I'm a weirdo and I pay attention to the forest and remember those things. But I thought it was a beautiful little spot there.
Yeah, I liked it. We hung out there for like half an hour.
Got some food. And then after that,
then we saw the chapel.
Oh, yeah.
We walked through like a little lakeside neighborhood. And there was a little chapel on the side of the road and a sign that said free water, which I was super excited about. It was like
a cute little setup there because it was literally like a mini chapel, like enough room for like 3 people. It was a tiny little thing, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of flowers and a bridge and
it was almost like trail magic.
Yeah, I thought it was trail magic.
I mean, I think it was. Yeah, it was magic.
There was a case of water, so I didn't have to bug you to borrow your Sawyer.
Yeah, right. No, but that was cool because even though not that many people hike through there, they had set that up, I guess, for the hikers. But it was also on like a dirt road, and there's people driving through a little bit, so maybe
it
other
could
people.
Have been for not us.
Who knows? Who knows? But if you want to swim on this trail, I should like open Gut Hook and like figure out where it was, because give people some pro tips. But I think there was like a little. We didn't stop there, but I think there was like a little swimming area that you could have gone in if you like wanted to swim. But we probably should have because it was so hot. But
I feel like we always talked about jumping in the lake and swimming, but we never actually did.
It's way easier said than done when you're like trying to hike a bigger day like that, because we did like 18 or 19-ish miles that day, so it's not like we had a ton of time to mess around, you know.
Yeah, if there was ever water or a lake next to where we were camping, then I probably would have gone swimming, but I don't think that ever happened.
What was that place called? I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it on Gut Hook here. Center Pond, that's what it was called.
Center Pond.
And it was at mile 15. This is the Gut Hook mileage is wrong though. Like around 17 miles, say 16 or 17 miles northbound. There was a little swimming area, so a little pro tip there.
Mm-hmm. And then is that the place that they? No, that's not the place that the lady said was infested with leeches.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That was in Washington.
There was a couple little like places you could have swam and like little lakes and stuff. But I think the next highlight for the day after that was probably Pitcher Mountain, yeah? Yeah,
that was my favorite.
Pitcher Mountain was really cool, and that's where the blueberries come into play.
Yeah, like it's before you go up Pitcher. It was labeled on Gut Hook as the blueberry pasture. So that was the first blueberries we saw. Mm-hmm. And they advertised it as pick your own blueberries. So there were quite a few tourists.
Yeah, there was a decent amount of people up there, but it wasn't like really overwhelming because it's like it's steep, but it's only like a half mile to get up there from the parking lot. So a lot of people could go up there, and it's pretty like open.
Not even. I hiked that like a month ago before I knew about this Monadnock Sunapee trail.
I can't believe you didn't get the blueberries on video, Taylor. What the hell?
You know what? They weren't in season when I hiked it in June. I know.
Just silly a little side note. Whenever I've talked to like other people with YouTube channels, like we always bond over the ridiculous fucking comments that people leave. And so Taylor had gotten a comment on her first video when she did this hike the first time. Somebody was like giving her shit for not showing the blueberries, even though it wasn't blueberry season. So that's my joke.
Yeah, and in that video, I hiked not mountains, but I hiked 8 trails in one day. So I didn't do like a ton of research. I just looked it up, went up, down, and then went to the next trail. So my bad, missed that important part.
You got plenty of blueberries on camera the second time though. So
yes.
And we ate plenty. There were so many blueberries up there. And another pro tip: if you go to Pitcher Mountain and you want to get like the best blueberries, like just walk a little bit further north on the Greenway. I'm talking like 0.1 or 0.2, not very far. But like if you do that, you're going to be away from the trail that everybody else, like all the day hikers, go on. And so like the blueberries were kind of picked over like on the very top. There's still some, but if you go just a little bit further, it was like blueberries, like just intense. Like I was a little bit overwhelmed, I'll be honest. Like just freaking, like I just wanted to stop like every 2 seconds because there was just so many like ripe blueberries just not picked.
And we did stop every 2 seconds.
Yeah, we did stop a lot. And
but yeah, that's the ultimate pro tip, because everyone stops at the Pitcher Mountain parking lot, goes up, down. It's round trip 0.7 miles, so it's incredibly easy to get to. But yeah, no one knows what the Greenway Trail is, and no one knows you can go further than that. So we did. And we got all the fresh blueberries.
And it was sick. There's so many blueberries. And there's also just kind of open up there. Like a lot of this middle section of the trail reminded me of like the Balds down south, kind of. Like to a lesser, they're not like tall like the Balds are, but I feel like it's pretty rare in New England to have like open, like kind of hilltops, open mountaintops. And there was a couple of those, as we're gonna get into in a second when we talk about where we camped. And so I thought that was just really, really cool. So then that was like towards the end of the day, but we went over a couple little other hills, some more blueberries, and then we ran into that lady who gave us like the tip off about that camping spot, Jackson Hill.
I feel like she was just like a massive fan of the Greenway Trail.
Yes, she was.
And so she talked to us a lot. I feel like it was one of those things where you keep saying like, bye, have a nice day.
And then she keeps going. Yeah.
She had something else to say.
Exactly.
But yeah, she was talking to us a bunch, and she's the one that told us where to camp that night.
And it was funny because we ran into her earlier. Like, I don't know if you talked to her at all, but I talked to her for a few minutes. Probably
you did. And then as soon as I caught up to you, she said bye.
Yeah. But it was probably like 2 or 3 hours earlier, maybe 2 hours earlier, on a different part of the trail, obviously. And she was going for a trail run, and she stopped, and she was talking up the trail, whatever. Had a nice little conversation. And then we saw her right at the end of the day again, up on the blueberry part, and I think you can drive up there, so I think she had driven up there. And the first thing she said, she was like, "Oh yeah, what did she say?" The way she said it was weird. She didn't say like, "Oh, we just talked a few hours ago." She said like, "Oh, like we've met before." And I was like,
Did you think it was a subscriber?
I thought at first maybe it was like, or she's like, "Oh, like I know you're," I forget what she said, something like that. So I was like, "From where?" And then she said like, "Oh, a few hours ago." And I was like, "Oh, it's the same lady." She was dressed differently too. She had been running and stuff.
Oh, that's funny. And
she tipped us off because there's this campsite called the Fox Brook tent site or campsite.
Yeah, and I wasn't excited to stay there.
No, it wasn't that great. And that's where we had planned to camp, and we were probably like a half mile away from it when we met the lady the second time. And she told us about Jackson Hill, which was only like 0.8 further up the trail, and there's no water, but she said that there was room on this little bald hill for tents. There's more blueberries up there too. And she said that like not many people know about it, so like it's a nice little like secret spot to camp, so secret's out, sorry. But when we heard about that, the weather was like perfect. We knew that, and I was like, shit, like maybe we should go camp up there. It might be kind of cool. And then we got to the Foxbrook tents campsite, whatever it is, and it's fine. There's water close by, which is good.
But it's not duplex friendly.
No, there's not very many flat spots that aren't the tent platform. There's a massive tent platform there, which, in the older days, those were great. But nowadays, I feel like building tent platforms at backcountry sites is a little bit outdated because there's so many like non-freestanding tents now, like the trekking pole tents and stuff. And those are getting more popular. So it wouldn't have been a great spot for that type of shelter for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
And
yeah,
then,
so we sat there and drank water for like 5 minutes and then left.
pretty much, yeah. And it was like 0.8. It was uphill. Maybe it was 0.8. It was point something. It wasn't that bad.
It felt like it was 8 miles.
It was uphill, and we had to haul all our water uphill, obviously, because there's no water up there. So that kind of sucked. But I mean, it wasn't the end of the world. I think it was worth it, maybe with the stupid thing we're going to talk about in a second. But
yeah, no, it was 100% worth it.
Because it was a beautiful spot. So that's a little pro tip. If you have a hammock, you're shit out of luck. There's no spots to hang a hammock. But Jackson Hill, nice little secret camping spot. However, if you camp up there, be prepared to run into our, quote, friend, fucking, I don't even remember what he said his name was. There's a guy that lives very close by to this. And again, like I said earlier, a lot of this trail is on like ATV style trails. And this particular 0.8, it didn't really seem like it was an ATV trail. Usually you can tell, there's the rivets, there's like a lot of mud, like you can see the tracks if people have been going there frequently. And that's usually kind of like a tip off, right? I didn't see that.
And then the way that the side of the mountain that we climbed up was definitely a hiking trail.
Yeah.
Like an ATV wouldn't fit on the side that.
But
actually, no, it did because he went down.
He
that
went
way.
down it, yeah. And even the other side, like the side we went down, didn't really like he like barely fit his fucking thing through there. Like I don't think he was supposed to be driving on that part of the trail.
Yeah, and then there were no ATV signs. We didn't see until the next morning, but. Whatever. He
didn't care. Yeah, and there are a lot
obviously.
of ATV trails that are nearby, so it's not like he was completely not supposed to be in the area at all. There was lots of ATV trails nearby, but that particular like summit was not an ATV trail. But anyway, sorry.
But we were kind of in the same position because there were plenty of other places we could have camped, but we chose that hill.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so anyway.
I'm not saying what he did was right, but I guess neither of us expected the other person to be up there.
Exactly. Because, again, I don't think many people go up there or camp up there or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so it was probably about 9:30 the first time?
10:30.
10:30? Okay, so it was pretty late.
I was already asleep.
It was pretty late the first time he came up. He came up. And so, yeah, we were already sleeping. I had kind of heard the ATV off in the distance, and at first I thought, like, there's just so many trails nearby. Like, I'm probably just hearing it off in the distance. And but I kind of sat up and I was just a little bit hyper alert. I was like, okay, I'm just going to, wait until it goes away. Probably like 5 minutes I was hearing it, and then it did go away. So I was like, okay, it's gone now. I laid back down, and then another like 30 seconds later, I hear it like real loud. All of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, like this is definitely coming up here. And then I see the lights, and at this point I like hopped out of my tent because, like I said, there's not a ton of room up there. And if he hadn't known we were up there, like I feel like and especially because it was late at night, I was like, I don't know if they've probably been drinking, like they're probably not, paying attention. So I was like, I want to make sure they see us so they don't fucking run us over, because we were like right next to the trail.
Yeah.
Plenty of space.
Both of our tents were like not even 2 feet away from where people would hike or ATV or anything.
Exactly. And so like I jumped out of the tent. I like ran over to you. I was like, hey, like wake up. Like this guy's like coming up.
You didn't just say, hey, wake up. You screamed. I thought we were about to die.
He was like right there though. So I wanted to make sure I got the point across, and the thing was kind of loud too. Because I don't know, like that's sketchy too. Like you don't know like what that person's like. You're kind of stuck up there. So
yeah, and you told me, you're like, turn on your light, and I'm very drowsy and sleepy. I didn't know why I was turning on my light. I didn't notice the ATV, so I thought, I was pretty scared. So this guy, the frog scared me, then the ATV guy definitely did.
True. This guy, he comes up. The first thing I saw was that he had kids in the back, which made me a little bit like less sketch, because I didn't know. It was late at night. I was like, this is bizarre. But this guy comes out, he fucking stops at the top. He's got the thickest like Massachusetts, like Southern New Hampshire fucking accent. I'm not even gonna try to do it, but like definitely a huge Red Sox fan, I'll say that.
Guys, look at those stars over there.
Oh my god, like, and he was so excited.
That's the Big Dipper, guys.
That's perfect. He had definitely been drinking a little bit. He wasn't like belligerent, like it was fine, but he was definitely drinking a little bit. But he was nice. He's talking everything up, like just super fucking pumped, dude. And like,
Look at them windmills.
Yeah, oh my god, it was ridiculous. So like I was talking to him for a minute. I was like, you know what? He lives here. He probably comes up here a lot. Like he's not used to seeing people up here. Like whatever, you know. I'm not gonna. Who am I to tell this guy to like get off? Like we're here or whatever. But the thing that really pissed me off was when he starts talking about how this is only trip number 1, and he's gonna come back up in a few minutes with his friends, because that was the kids' trip. And he's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna come back up with my friends that are in town or whatever."
Yeah, we gotta get rid of these kids and then come up with the adults, and then that'll be the real party.
Yeah, I was like, I literally didn't even say anything. I just like got in my tent. I was like, whatever, dude. And so they left. They weren't up there for very long, thankfully, probably like 5 minutes. And then like I was probably awake for like another half an hour after that, and they didn't come back up. So I was like, all right, maybe he decided not to come back up. So I went back to sleep. I figured, if he comes up again, I'll like hear it again. Like I'll have time to like be ready or whatever so he doesn't hit us again. Fell asleep, and then I did not hear him coming the second time. I woke up to the lights right in my face. I was like, oh, fuck. I didn't even have time to get out of my tent. I just like waved my headlamp like right outside the mesh of my tent or whatever.
Yeah.
And he comes up with the adults, same fucking thing. Because it was like, the second time I was like, really, dude? Like, we're sleeping here. Like,
yeah, that's obnoxious when you know someone's sleeping and it was still go up.
Almost 1 a.m. at this point?
It was, yeah, like 12:31.
So it was like, come on. So that was annoying. Thankfully, again, they didn't stay for that long. They were probably only there for another 5 minutes. But yeah, just be on the lookout if you camp on Jackson Hill in Washington.
Yes.
According to him, though, that does have the best view in Washington, New Hampshire. So,
which I guess is a claim to fame.
I guess that's why he had to come up twice in the same night.
I don't know.
So, anyways, that was that. Then day 3. What was
day 3? We went into Washington.
Yes, so we actually went into the town of Washington on day 3, which is cool. There's a little like general store there with a grill. It's like kind of a restaurant, kind of like a little, convenience store or whatever too.
It was a gas station, actually.
They had gas, they had freaking t-shirts and hats, they had it all. They do it all there in Washington because it's literally the only fucking business there. But
one-stop shop. They're
very hiker friendly. They even had a sign out front, welcoming hikers. They filled up your water bottles for you. They knew what to do. And they had very good food that was very reasonably priced, a very full menu and everything. And it was nice little cold soda in the middle of a very hot day. It was great, definitely.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that the entire time. Like even days leading up to actually going on the hike, I'm like, I can't wait to have a soda at this.
You're like not even on trail.
Yeah, I'm like, I could go downstairs and get one in the fridge right now, but no, I'm going to save it for the Washington General Store.
And it was a great little spot. That's where we ran into those other 2 thru hikers as well.
They had outdoor seating.
Yep, they had the whole shebang. And then we trudged on, very full, very sweaty. And then I feel like after Washington, the trail scenery kind of changed because after that you go up Lovewell Mountain,
yeah,
something like that, and that was a decent climb for the trail. It was probably next to Monadnock. It was probably the biggest climb. It still wasn't that bad.
It was the second biggest, but it was nowhere near Monadnock.
No, it wasn't. But at that point, I felt like the terrain really started to change, like the scenery started to change, because up to that point, I mean, at this point, we're probably, I don't know how many miles. I'm gonna look it up as I blab here, but up to that point, it was a lot of like rolling hills, a lot of a ton of rock walls, like ancient shit that had been placed there, like hundreds of, like I don't know how long ago, freaking time ago, and I love that shit. Like I love history, so
I probably wouldn't have noticed they were there if you didn't.
There were so many of them, and like you don't get those in the whites, like you don't even get those up here in my part of Vermont. So it was just like, I don't know. I love southern New England like that. I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I saw those all the time when I lived in Massachusetts, but now that you say it, there. I don't say anymore.
Yeah, so Lovewell Mountain is 33.3 miles in, or 36-ish, because the first 2 miles of the trail aren't on Guthook for some reason. But, around there. And so I felt like at that point, not only did we stop seeing the rock walls, but we also started to get into like the pine and like spruce trees a little bit, slightly higher elevation than the rest of the trail. And then even from then on afterwards, I feel like it reminded me more of like northern Vermont instead of like southern Vermont, like southern New England kind of. So I really just noticed like the scenery kind of change on a dime after Washington, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. Was it more hiking and less roads?
Yeah, definitely more trail that day. More trail that day, like trail that day. And I had like a moment, like the 2 miles before the shelter, I had gotten a little bit ahead of Taylor, and it was just like up on this beautiful ridge, and there weren't really any views, but I could just tell like I was kind of high up, and like there's a nice breeze, so it was finally cooling down a little bit. And we stayed at the Moose Lookout Shelter that night, which I thought was a freaking gorgeous spot. It was amazing there. And I feel like, I don't know, I don't really have any stories from day 3, but I thoroughly enjoyed that hike. I think we did, like 17 miles or something?
Yeah, it was 17, but it was so much harder than the second day.
You really think it was that much harder?
I was in that last couple miles when we were on that ridge leading up to the shelter. I was in so much pain. I don't know, like from exhaustion, and my feet hurt. So you were probably bouncing up and down on that ridge, enjoying the moment, and I was crawling. So we had 2 very different experiences those last, I think it was 1.6 miles on that ridge.
And that's not to say that I wasn't tired. I was tired. And as soon as I stopped hiking, it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, we probably said like 3 words to each other that whole night because we were just like, oh, fuck, like fucking tired. But I don't know. I just enjoyed like the hike. I was also listening to like some music. I was just grooving. But once I stopped, I was definitely tired. I had a sick bear hang that night, though. I had a perfect branch. We both did, actually. Did. Yeah, you did too.
Except
honestly.
My bear hang was directly above my tent, which I feel like defeats the purpose.
Probably not super advised, but it was, hey, a nice bear hang is a nice bear hang. I don't care. There was no way a bear was getting that shit. That's all I had energy
to do.
Exactly. So yeah, that was day 3. Then day 4 was the day we finished, and it wasn't really that much to it. We saw, what was that place called? The Pond?
Oh.
I gotta look it up. I keep freaking closing Gut Hook. I should just leave it open. Very, very close to the summit of Mount Sunapee. So right at the end.
Solitude,
Lake Solitude. Which is a very gorgeous spot. You get like a couple like little like cliffs and views on this last day, which was nice because you don't get a ton of like mountain views. You know, I guess you did.
I feel like we had a couple lookouts.
Yeah, little lookouts.
Sunapee.
That's the right word.
Yeah, so we can see.
Because you can kind of like, and if you look on like Gut Hook on the elevation profile too, you can see like you kind of like steadily climb that last day, like never very steep, but always like a little bit up as you kind of get to the top of Sunapee. Very, very easy compared to going up Monadnock.
I had pep in my step that morning.
Yeah, and then you come out to the top of Sunapee. It's a ski mountain, so there's a lot of like trails and like equipment and buildings and stuff up there, which I personally don't really mind. There's plenty of those here in Vermont, so I'm pretty used to them. But then you just come out and there's like a little sign, and that's it. It's kind of
it was exciting.
A little bit anticlimactic, but it was still I don't know. It felt good. It felt good to finish.
You're like, you have to touch the summit sign. And I'm like, where? And it was right there. I'm like, oh, that. Okay.
It's not really clearly marked, but that was the only sign I saw that said like Monadnock Sunapee Greenway Trail. Like, it didn't even say end. It's just like, it's on the top of the mountain. It was just an arrow,
like go over there.
Yeah. So we did that. And then exciting. Hiked the couple miles back down to the car. And that was pretty much it. That was pretty much the hike.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, and then we did see towards the end of the hike, we started seeing signs for the Sunapee Kearsarge Ragged Greenway.
Did you get a chance to look into that at all?
No. Besides the fact that it's like a 75-mile loop.
I think it's like, I didn't look into it that closely. They have like a very outdated website, and I think a lot of it's probably on roads. Like there's not a ton of information, but I guess it's like a 70 or 75 whatever mile loop. I don't know. It looks pretty cool. So if you want to keep going after the Sunapee Greenway Trail, you can do that.
I'll add a page to my binder, so that maybe I'll do it in the future.
Print some shit out.
Something else to check off.
But yeah, that's the Greenway. It's an amazing trail, especially if you're like if you want to do like a prep for the AT, for instance, or you just like you're a beginner and you don't want to go too hard, but you still want to go out for a couple days and like through hike a trail, get a little bit of some accomplishment or whatever. This trail would be amazing. Even if you're an experienced hiker, still do this trail. It's a hidden gem. It's amazing. And hats off to the Monadnock to Sunapee Greenway Trail Club who maintains this trail. Go check out their website if you want like more information and stuff, and watch our videos too.
Kyle, yours is so funny. Well, as of right now, you only have day 1 out, and it's 6 minutes long, but I've watched it like probably 8 times.
Yours is really good too. So I'm doing 1 video per day, so 4 videos. As of the time this comes out, the second video should be out. So I should have 2 videos out by the time you're listening to this. So it'll be about halfway through the trip, and Taylor should have the entire thing out, assuming you stick with your Tuesday schedule, right?
Yeah, I mean it's been consistent for 2 weeks. So
Can't stop now.
I'm trying to upload every Tuesday. So yeah, part 2 on Tuesday.
So go check that out. Yeah, it was good. Can you do your story? Do you want to do your story?
Yeah.
So this is not Monadnock
completely unrelated,
but I can't rob Taylor of the opportunity to tell a story on Trail Tales. So let's hear it.
Story time. So this story actually almost canceled my whole AT hike, because this happened June of 2019. So I was preparing. I was in the middle of like getting all my gear for the AT, and I was starting to take hiking seriously and getting into shape. And it was the weekend, and I actually had a wedding to go to that afternoon. So it was my boyfriend's best friend's wedding. And it was like at 5. So I woke up early and I was like, I have time to get in a little hike. Mm-hmm. So I messaged a friend on Instagram, and she wanted to come out with me. And this is, by hike, I mean, it's like a 700-foot hill in the town I live in. And so we go there, we meet.
There's the dog.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, she stopped. Okay, so we met at the trailhead, and she's a nurse. So I'm like, okay, great. Like, it's always nice to hike with a nurse.
Yeah.
So we hike the 700 feet. We get to the summit, and then I noticed that my vision was going off a little bit. And she was like, oh, look, an eagle. And I looked at the sky, and all I saw was like dots. I'm like, oh, that's not good. And so I told her, and she's like, oh, you need to eat some sugar, drink some water. And I did. And so we get back down, or we turn around, because I'm like, yeah, I'm not feeling well. I need to get back to my car.
Yeah.
And so we're climbing down. It's like, I don't know, maybe 2 miles down back to the parking lot. And so I just get nauseous, and I throw up about like 7 times. And so I'm like, something's not right. And we get to the parking lot, and I drove myself there. So she's like, are you okay to drive? And I'm like, no, but I'll just sit in my car for a while and maybe take a nap or something and drink water, and I'll be fine. She goes, okay, like, call me if you need anything. And so she leaves. I sit in my car, like I said, for about 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, okay, I'll drive home. And it's only like a 15-minute drive. And I drive for about 2 minutes. And then I knew something wasn't right. And I pulled my car over to the side of the road, had absolutely no service. And then I lost my memory. Oh. Like, I had no idea what happened. But I pulled my car over to the side of the road, and I didn't know how to turn it off. Like, all like the little simple things were just like dead from my brain. Oh, like, geez. I couldn't. So I was trying to flag down a car because I didn't know what happened, and I didn't know how to open my door. I didn't know how to put my window down, and I think I honked at someone, or maybe I opened the door, but I got someone to come over to my car. And I was like, I think you need to call like 911. And so he did. And he's asking me like all these simple questions, like, what's your name? Where do you live? Like, I kept saying, call my boyfriend, call my boyfriend. And then I gave him my phone, and he goes, well, what's your boyfriend's name? He's like looking at my contact list. And I'm like, I don't know. So like, I don't know. I feel like I knew it in my head, but like, I don't know, the connection to my brain couldn't say it. So that was really scary. And everything was fine in the end. I went to the hospital. My boyfriend missed his best friend's wedding, which I still feel bad for to this day. But that is just a bad case of dehydration. So
drink water.
Just PSA to everyone. I mean, it could be as small as a 700-foot hill, but just drink water.
Yes.
And so it was tough because my family and friends were like, they weren't super on board about me hiking the Appalachian Trail the next year, but they were supporting me. They're like, we think this is ridiculous that you're going to backpack 2,200 miles. But as soon as that happened, they're like, no, none of us want you to go. So it was tough trying to like start from scratch and try to convince everyone that I was fine. My parents bought me like the Garmin InReach thing.
Right.
And I think it wasn't until my mom and I went out to lunch in Lincoln, New Hampshire, which is an amazing trail town right off the AT, because I was doing some business up there. And we were just sitting in Black Mountain Burger. I don't know. A lot of people know where that is.
I know
it.
I've been there a couple times.
A thru hiker got dropped off in the parking lot, and my mom just like jumped out of her seat, like ran to the front of the restaurant, was like, I want to buy you lunch. And so this thru hiker came. Like, I guess this is like two separate stories, because this is okay. This is fast forward a couple months. But yeah, once this thru hiker sat at the table and my mom basically like interrogated him for the whole entire hour, like asked him every single question she had about the AT, then she was on board. And it's like I'm 26, like I'm fine. Like I don't need my parents' permission to hike the AT, but it would have been pretty devastating.
Nice to have their blessing, yeah.
Yeah, if I didn't have their support, it would have sucked. So yeah, my mom got to meet her first thru hiker, and yeah, that made them on board. But yeah, that was super close to just ending everything I had like saved up for the AT, because I'm like, I can't be in the middle of the woods and have this happen. So
obviously, well, you made it okay, and you stayed plenty hydrated on our hike, even though it was very hot and pretty difficult to do so.
Even though I didn't have a water filter.
Yeah. So,
but no, that's totally my bad.
It worked. And yeah, I think that's going to do it. Taylor, why don't you go ahead and plug your YouTube channel, your Instagram, all that stuff.
Yeah, I am on YouTube as Taylor the
Almost
Nahamsha
at
hiker.
10,000 subscribers.
I'm so close. If everyone listening to this wants to head over and give me a subscribe, that would be awesome. I want to reach 10K. Not that it matters, but my brother is actually... My brother recently got into YouTube, and I had my subscribers go over to his channel, and now to try to get him monetized, and they did, which is awesome, but now he has clearly surpassed me in the YouTube life, so it's a sibling rivalry now.
Gotta get those numbers up.
Yeah, head over to Taylor the Nahamsha hiker on YouTube, and then on Instagram it's just Nahamsha hiker.
I think I convinced Taylor to post every single Tuesday on our hikes, because I was giving you shit for not posting as much as you should. Cause
I know. I really love it. Like, I feel like I hiked the AT because obviously I love hiking and I was like super intrigued with it, but I'm also super obsessed with just like the video editing. Not that I'm good at it, but I don't know. It's the hobby.
It's fun.
And I don't know. It's really cool making nice content.
Go smash subscribe. I'll have a link to her channel in the show notes.
YouTube, Instagram. And if you're ever in Meredith, New Hampshire, I own a gift shop called Nahamsha, and pop in and say hi.
Yes, do it.
Yeah.
Make her some money. And get some cool gifts too.
Cool fund shirts. My next thru hike.
Let's do it. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Taylor, thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting up with me for 4 days in the woods too.
Oh, no problem.
And yeah, peace, everybody.